A game of manhunt in the woods after dark, a hidden tunnel nobody else knew existed, and at the very end of it, something was already waiting there, something that was never supposed to be found. I was around 15 when this happened. We were camping out in the middle of nowhere, my whole family plus part of my extended family, my aunt, my uncle, my cousins. I was the oldest kid in the RV by a good 2 years, which meant most of the trip I was stuck babysitting instead of having fun. So when we pulled into the campground and I found out there was a whole group of other teenagers there too, kids we already half knew from past summers. It felt like getting let out of a cage. We hit it off within the hour, the way you do at that age, like we'd known each other forever. My parents trusted me, that part's true. I liked having fun, but I liked getting home for dinner just as much, so when I disappeared for most of the day with the other kids, nobody worried. The rule was simple: back at the RV by 8:30 for dinner. That was it. So picture 6 teenagers, 15 and 16 years old, running loose in the woods with zero adult supervision for most of the daylight hours. A great idea in theory. That particular afternoon, we stumbled onto a trail none of us had ever noticed before, not in 2 summers of coming to that campground. And the more I looked at it, the less it looked like a deer trail. It cut through the thickest part of the underbrush, maybe a foot of clear ground at the base, 3.5 feet of open space above it. You'd walk right past it if you weren't looking, or if you didn't already know it was there. We poked around it, snapped a branch to mark the entrance, and moved on without thinking much more about it. Except I remembered it. That detail mattered more than I knew. That night at dinner, one of the adults had the bright idea to play manhunt out in the woods. In the dark. Not everybody loved that idea, but the objections got steamrolled fast. Flashlights got handed out, teams got picked, and before I knew it, we were standing at the edge of the tree line waiting for the signal. If you've never played, it's basically flashlight tag with rules. 2 teams, runners and hunters. Runners get a head start to hide. If a hunter catches you and can correctly say your name, you switch sides and start hunting too. Last person standing wins. Simple enough on paper. First round I got put with the runners. Usually my move was to climb a tree and wait it out, but that strategy had never once won me a game, so this time I decided to actually use my head. I remembered the tunnel. It took most of my 5-minute head start just to find the thing again. It really was that well hidden. As I moved past the other hiding spots, I could hear other kids whispering to each other, arguing in hushed voices about where to go. The kind of rustling you'd hear from birds settling into a hedge. I've always had good ears. It's basically my one athletic advantage. But right as I reached the tunnel entrance, the air horn sounded. 5 minutes up. I dropped down and crawled in on my hands and knees, shuffling forward until I was about halfway through, hunched down low like some overgrown bird. I could hear the hunters doing their first sweep of the trails, checking the obvious spots, catching anyone dumb enough to still be moving. When they reached the dead end near me, they turned around and left without a second look. I figured I'd try to get in a little deeper, just to be safe. And that's when I found it, a second path branching off the first one, even better hidden than the one I was already in. I don't know what made me follow it. Curiosity maybe, or just not wanting to get caught 2 rounds in a row. Whatever it was, I dragged myself down that second tunnel, and instead of hitting a dead end, it opened into a small hollow. I still don't like describing what was in there. It was a woman, young, naked, covered in cuts and stab wounds, curled into herself like she was trying to disappear. Her eyes were open, glassy, staring at nothing, or through me, I couldn't tell which. I didn't scream. I don't think I could have if I tried. I just froze there, feeling something warm and wet soak into the knees of my jeans, and I didn't understand yet that it wasn't mine. I don't know how long I stayed like that. It felt like hours. It was probably seconds. Then I heard someone else on the path behind me. You ever get so scared that for one insane second you actually consider doing something incredibly stupid just to get away? That was me right then. A whimper slipped out before I could stop it, and I started moving, and whoever was out there heard it because their footsteps picked up, coming faster now. I could hear breathing. Heavy. Uneven, a man's breathing, getting closer with every second. By some miracle, he walked right past the entrance to the hollow. I heard him keep going down the main tunnel, dragging something heavy and awkward behind him, something that clinked every few steps like metal knocking against metal. He muttered something under his breath, a curse, low and irritated, like whatever he was carrying kept catching on the brush. That was my window. I shot out of that tunnel like I'd been fired out of something, and the second I broke into the open, I heard him suck in a breath behind me and start moving. Fast. I don't remember standing up so much as I remember suddenly being upright and running, branches tearing at my arms, my legs somehow working even though they felt like they belonged to somebody else. He was right behind me at first, close enough that I could still hear him breathing, but he didn't have my legs, and after a stretch he started falling back, his breathing turning ragged like he was burning out fast. People always make fun of the girl in horror movies who trips over nothing. I didn't trip. To this day I don't know how. Every part of me was jelly, but somehow I stayed upright the entire way back, sprinting until I hit the main trail and then just screaming the whole way into camp. I remember confused faces turning toward me out of the dark, somebody shouting after me, and then the camp itself, and trying to force out words that made any sense at all. And then the silence. This heavy, awful silence from every adult standing there once I finally got the words out. After that, it's mostly a blur. I know the police got called. I know my mother and my aunt went running and screaming down that trail, calling for the other kids to come back. When somebody's yelling like that, you don't ask questions, you just move. The whole group was rounded up and back in camp inside of 30 seconds. The police found a man out in those woods, still on the trail, still holding a knife. A black garbage bag was recovered nearby, full of tools, sharp ones. A saw among them, some of it stained dark with dried blood. I don't think you ever really get over something like that. I still dream about it sometimes. The sound of him breathing behind me in the dark, closing the distance, one step at a time. In some of those dreams, he doesn't fall behind. Some nights don't feel wrong until the next morning explains why. She still remembers the smell drifting down that hill and what the police found less than a block from where she'd been standing. I was a teenager back then and about as goth as it gets. Black hair, black clothes, black makeup, a pair of beat-up combat boots I practically lived in. My friends and I used to hang out at the cemetery near my house. It started as a joke, honestly, the kind of thing you do to freak people out. But somewhere along the way it stopped being a joke. There was something about that place at night. Quiet, still, we liked the peace we found there. That all changed one night. My friend called and asked if I wanted to hang out. None of our other friends were around. They were either working or sleeping off the night before, so it was just the two of us. She picked me up and we drove out to the cemetery like we always did. We sat there smoking cigarettes, talking about whatever drama she was going through with her boyfriend at the time. Normal stuff, nothing out of the ordinary. Then we noticed it up at the top of the hill. Maybe 100 feet away, somebody had lit a bonfire. I want to be clear, that wasn't totally unheard of. The cemetery sat about a block off campus from a major university, and it wasn't unusual for college kids to sneak in and party. So at first, we didn't think much of it. We just sighed, both of us knowing we'd have to get moving soon. Being in there after dark was illegal, and a bonfire that size was going to bring the police sooner or later. We decided to finish our cigarettes first. That's when the smell hit us. It came rolling down the hill from the direction of the fire, the most horrible stench I'd ever smelled in my life. My friend gagged, slapped a hand over her mouth. I remember groaning, saying, "What the hell is that?" She just shook her head. "I don't know what they're doing up there, let's just go." We got in the car. One of us, I honestly don't remember which, said, "Maybe we should go up and see what they're doing." The second those words left our mouths, my stomach turned over. A cold shiver ran straight through me. And my friend must have felt exactly the same thing, because at the same moment we both said, "No, we should leave." She turned the key, flipped on the headlights, dropped it into reverse, and looked over her shoulder to start backing out. I was still watching the hill. That's when I saw it. A figure stepped in front of the bonfire. I couldn't make out anything but the shape of it, a silhouette against the flames, but I knew it was watching us. Something in me just broke loose. "Go," I said, then louder, "Go, go, go, go." She glanced back up that hill one more time, and the second that figure took a step toward the car, she slammed her foot on the gas and we went flying backward down the hill. She threw it into drive and we were gone. Neither of us said a word for a while. Finally, she broke the silence. What the hell were they burning? I didn't have an answer, I just shook my head. She dropped me off and I went to bed. The next morning I got up and wandered into the kitchen. My mom was there with her coffee and I sat down with her. We talked about her job for a bit, small talk, nothing important, until she looked at me and said, "Did you hear what happened last night?" I told her no, I'd just woken up. She said a woman she worked with had been kidnapped from a parking garage. "Oh my God," I said, "did they find her?" "Yes," she said, "but too late." Whoever took her had raped and murdered her, and they'd found her that morning up in the cemetery. He tried to burn the body to get rid of it. I froze. My mind was moving faster than I could keep up with, the realization creeping in slow, one horrible piece at a time. That fire, that smell, that shape standing in front of the flames, watching us back out of the dark. We'd been right there.